Alright. Welcome to Nerds on the Mic, where we talk about all things Nerdcore related from video games, anime, music, and more. I'm your host, Silver Ranch, and I'd like to welcome everybody to the first episode of Nerds on the Mic. For probably everybody new to my channel, or if you're listening to this on my Spotify or anywhere else, you're probably wondering, well, what is Nerds on the Mic? Well, Nerds on the Mic is a podcast that I'm hosting that is half educational and half also just a personal, I guess, passion project that I started up recently that delves into probably something that's like deep to my heart, which is Nerdcore. Which, if you're wondering, you're probably all asking right now, what's Nerdcore? For anybody who's not like a consistent viewer of my channel, or a listener on Spotify, SoundCloud, Apple, or any other streaming service you pick this up on. Well, Nerdcore is a genre of music that is based around anything that is nerd or geek culture. So that can go from video games, anime, manga, comic books, and even cartoons, and just any other thing that's kind of just, kind of imaginative and just kind of different from like things you would see. So like you could even throw like Stranger Things into that mix. Like things like Dragon Ball or Gravity Falls, SpongeBob, things like that. It doesn't have to be just like anime you see from like Japan. It's stuff that even comes from like the Western world. And it falls into the music sphere because it's been something that's been going around for a while, ever since I would say like 2000 with, oh god, I'm going to double check the name. The name was MC Frontalot, was the earliest known example of this back in 2000. So this is a term that's been around for about 25-ish years, 25-ish years. And it encapsulates a lot of different like styles of music. I've seen soul, rock, R&B, hip hop, trap, rock and roll, heavy metal, pop. Like this isn't one genre, but hip hop's like the primary, I would say the primary dominant facet of this genre. At least to me it is. That's where a lot of the musicians I listen to come from. And the relation with hip hop is kind of a bumpy one. I think if you go and ask different people, you're gonna get differing views, and honestly, probably a lot of negative opinions on it. And it's kind of the tough question. Well, why is that the case? Why is it that we are having these kind of disagreements with nerdcore fitting in with hip hop? Well, it's because, quite honestly, when you listen to hip hop, it's this tough, it's gritty. You think people like Tupac and Biggie, you think Eminem, and you think J. Cole, Kendrick, Old Chance the Rapper, Earl Sweatshirt. You don't think of guys who are gonna look a little more on the dorky, I guess on the dorky side. They're people who look like they don't. See, when I say nerds, it's almost like people who get pushed around like the old stereotype of like movies when they get shoved in lockers. It's not that, but it's like they're people that a lot of people would consider icons and idols, and I guess more importantly, these kind of people. The tough way to explain it is just that there's a big difference between like this culture of nerdcore versus just regular hip hop, because of mainly just what the topics are about. And nowadays I think we've run into a lot of controversy over hip hop, because with current issues like rising issues with drugs, and just a lot of mass violence and gun violence. There's a lot of negative stigmas towards any style of hip hop at all, and any hip hop artist, regardless of what genre or what style you do, kind of gets a negative eye thrown at. When in reality, a lot of artists don't do this kind of crap and don't fall into it. So I think I kind of wanted to start off by explaining those details and like where the differences is, because when you look online, there's definitely a lot of people who like to talk a lot of crap, saying like this genre doesn't, it's not real hip hop, it's corny, it's fake, it's all these things, and there's always going to be people just having issues and having like problems with this genre, and just people in general. Like when you live online, and it's kind of transitions to my next topic of like why is there so much negative stigma with this? It's like a lot of things. When you find something that you consider different and it's weird, it's very out there. When you combine things like hip hop and like say like Phineas and Ferb or something like that, it's like that's weird deep down. Like that's not something you would traditionally think about. When you think hip hop, you're thinking you're thinking hit 'em up. You're thinking Tupac, and you're thinking Grandmaster Flash, you're thinking LL Cool J, you're thinking Eminem, you're thinking Travis Scott, you're thinking all these different people, and you're never thinking about that sort of the topic. And that's where I kind of like started getting involved with this sort of stuff. So how I ended up kind of how I put it in the document here that I'm kind of looking off for bullet points is how did I fall down this hole? It started because I listened to a lot of Shofu and 6 Seconds, who 6 dropped a video, and it's an old video. Like I was watching this back in late middle school, early high school, so like 8th, 9th grade. So this is 14, 15-year-old me listening to this video that was like 1 or 2 years old. It was like the hardest rap about like video games and cartoons and anime. And I'm like, this is so dope. And at the same time, because I didn't grow up with a lot of like, I guess going into my video game life part of me, I didn't grow up with a lot of like, you know, Destiny or Halo, Call of Duty, GTA. I grew up with really none of that. So like a lot of any type of shooter game, unless it's Fortnite now for me, I couldn't tell you why. That game's just really addicting is the issue. A lot of those games just didn't sit with me as much. So I grew up with a lot of Super Mario Bros. And Pokemon, Legend of Zelda, Sonic the Hedgehog. I grew up with that sort of stuff. I grew up with a lot of like the really nerdy and dorky stuff. And so when I started listening to these tracks from Shofu and 6, and I was like, wow, this is really good. And it kind of stuck with me through my high school years. And when that happened, I also started, as I started picking up hip-hop through 8th grade, I started with J. Cole and Eminem and Kendrick Lamar, and then I started finding people like Tupac and LL Cool J, Grandmaster Flash, and then on the news side, I had Travis Scott and Earl Sweatshirt. I was bumping out on the bus with all the guys from track and field to old Chance the Rapper and Earl Sweatshirt. We would... Oh my goodness, it brings back a lot of good memories. But at that time, I started also falling into the rabbit hole of independent artists, a lot of more YouTube style rappers. So that was Quadeca and Dax and Crypt and people like that. And I was really intrigued with these style of artists. And one producer, his name was Joey Nato, put out a cipher. It was a Dragon Ball cipher, and I started listening to all these different artists on it. It was Rustage and Dizzy 8, who was in the independent scene with Crypt and all them. So it was Rustage and Fable and Daddy Fat Snaps and Dizzy 8 and Mix Williams and Zach B and Diggs and all these talented artists that I've got to meet some of them. And there's just a lot of genuine care in this genre, and I think that's where a lot of this love kind of goes from, and it kind of builds from it. And that's some of the biggest strength I've found with this is there's a lot of anger and negative stigmas towards regular hip hop. There's a lot of hatred where you don't like a certain artist. There's a lot of reasons. Well, why is that the case? Why don't you like Travis Scott, or why don't you like Cardi B, or why don't you like I don't know, NBA YoungBoy or something like that. And it's just like, for me, part of it is sometimes music can sound really similar. There's not enough distinguished differences for me to want to listen to certain people. Like, I'll still listen to some modern people, like Lil Mosey, I think, right? Lil Mosey? He's the one who did Blueberry Faygo. Give me 1 second to fact check this, because I would like to be right. That's Lil Mosey. Like, I have some Lil Mosey songs. I have a ton of Joyner Lucas because he's just phenomenal. Like, I have all his old and his new stuff. I've been bumping 24 Hours to Live for so long, and that's where I think I wanted to make this podcast, because not only I want to get artists in from our genre, kind of like start talking with them and like get their insight on music and like where they've gone, and like not just like producing and like, oh, what are you dropping next, but like where your love of music kind of started. So I kind of wanted to drop this first episode as like an explanation to my life, where I kind of started with this, so I can let the rest of the episodes be about anyone else I bring on for this awesome project. But I kind of wanted to also use this to talk about certain things, because again, this is Nerds on the Mic. Not only is this about music, this is about anything nerd related. So there's been some interesting. There were two things I kind of wanted to highlight here. The first one is the rise of tracks from the show Has Been a Hotel, and this is funny for me, because back during like when I was starting off college, so not my, or actually no, I did some reaction videos my freshman year, but through my freshman and sophomore years of college, Hell of a Boss was the first show. So if you're wondering, the shows Has Been a Hotel and Hell of a Boss, these are projects made by a YouTuber named Vizzy Pop. I think her name is like Vivian Madrano, I think that's her name. And she put out these two shows. Now, she kept Hell of a Boss as like her own personal passion project that she drops on YouTube. But Has Been Hotel was something that was liked so much that Amazon Prime bought, I guess, kind of like the royalty rights for it, and like reshaped the acting team. I guess brought in new animators and brought extra help for her so she can make this project a reality, and a high budget one. So if you want to watch it, it's on Amazon Prime. Yes. Yeah, it's on Amazon Prime. I should know this. I get spammed with videos on my TikTok all the time about this show. What's interesting to me is that, and it's kind of the landscape of it, like, like it or not, YouTube follows the American format of being a very capitalistic format. The people who get noticed are the people who end up on the front page, and the people who end up on the front page, well, they get listens, they get followings, they eventually get money, and if they get money, they can continue to better their craft and get more followers. Like, it's kind of a circle in a way. So anybody who's been watching this show knows this show and Hell of a Boss are gold mines for just free views. It kind of intrigues me that it came out. Well, the project got put back a while, but because especially with bigger studios and bigger companies, you're usually going to kind of push back things and delay times, and have a longer course of action when planning out TV shows. That's usually how a lot of strategies go. Where a lot of YouTube projects, it's more you plan for that project up front, you commit to the project, you edit the project through post-production, and then you throw it out on YouTube, and then you get ready to run the next one. Whereas a lot of these shows, because they release on weekly deadlines, that's not realistic. Like, if you've ever watched an episode of Has Been Hotel, you can't animate that in a week. You can't act that in a week. You can't put the sound design in that in a week. These are things that are planned months, hell, I would even argue a year or two in advance to do that. And so it's interesting now, after the show got started and it got the green light and all this stuff, like, these tracks started coming out of the woodwork like crazy. I mean, and people are dropping more than one as well. Like, Fable dropped an Alistair track, and now he's dropping an Angel Dust track, and then you had DPS who dropped a track, and then the actor for Alistair even commented on his Twitter, or sent something on to him on his Twitter, like calling the track amazing. It's interesting because this trend is actually like kind of how a lot of the business works on this end, where in music, it's kind of where this is weird. There's an easy business trend with nerdcore that you won't see in a lot of other genres, because in a way it follows YouTube's format. Well, what's trending? The same way on shows. Well, what's trending on TV? Whereas like in a lot of hip hop, you kind of have to be good at self promoting, and then occasionally you just gotta have something that's catchy. Like, who remembers when no, it's the song that Drake did. My bad. It was a song, Wants and Needs, with Lil Baby. That song on its own is not crazy, like, memorable. But when you listen to Lil Baby's verse, it's super catchy. And you start seeing the memes of it online, and the song just blew up. I mean, the lyric video alone that I started when I was practicing this track, it has 27 million views. If we go to Drake's actual channel, if he has this song out, it looks like he does not have it out. But just from the music video alone, or just from the lyric video alone, it got 27 million views. If we go to Spotify, I should have probably looked this up earlier, but because I was thinking about this actually earlier, I almost just completely screwed myself. I pulled up the song and played it. That could have been very bad. It actually doesn't show here, so give me 1 second. I apologize, viewers. According to Spotify, Wants and Needs by Drake, the one that's featuring Lil Baby, that song is currently sitting on Spotify at 770 million streams on just Spotify alone. You add in like probably the 50 million views on YouTube, and then God knows how many on Apple Music and Spotify. This song's been listened to well over 1 billion plus times. Probably I would argue maybe 1.3 to 1.2 million times. Or 1.2 to 1.3 billion times is what I mean. And there's no business model around that makes that song great. Baby's verse just was really good, and people were able to make a meme out of it. Where a lot of tracks in nerdcore, you're kind of almost in a way chasing trends, the same way you would follow the YouTube business model of what's trending on YouTube. Well, okay, then what's trending in anime right now? Well, okay, Hazbin Hotel's like blowing up because the show is incredible and it's marketed phenomenally. So if you make a track for it, it's going to get a lot of views. A good example, Hell of Boss took off, and I dropped a music video on my channel. I hate that song. That song is bad. I hate the song. It's called Dark Road. If you ever want to torture your ears for it, it's on my YouTube. And it's my most viewed video by a country mile. It's sitting at almost 5K, and I hate it. But overall, I think that's what's interesting for me, because there's a big business model of being able to chase the trend that you can't do in regular hip-hop, which I think is something that's interesting and honestly worth maybe a long debate with another artist over in the future. So if you want me to ask that question to an artist, please let me know on YouTube or on Spotify or something like that, because I think this is a really good idea that if done right, this could be a really interesting debate for every episode, or for a lot of episodes. Now, I want to wrap this up with a kind of a sillier topic, because I want people's thoughts on this as well. This is the one I really want to hear, people. This is kind of a nerd out discussion. Are you a Pokemon person, or are you Pal World? If people who are wondering, Pal World came out about 2-3 months ago. How old is that game actually? Another time to go fact check something because it was something that genuinely caught me off guard. So Power World came out on January 19th, 2024. So the game is about 2.5 months to three months now. And a bunch of memes started coming out because they're like, oh, Power World kind of fell off and it's not as popular now because of the announcement of Pokemon Legends Arceus Zeta A. I think that's the name of the title. I didn't watch the direct because I got too much going on to ever watch directs because they're like hours long. But I think it's interesting, and I want to, like I said, I want to hear you guys' thoughts because there's a lot of arguments of laziness and stuff like that. And for somebody like me, I've played Pokemon Scarlet and Violet, and I would tell you those games are hot garbage. Like the last two games they dropped, which was Brilliant Diamond, Shining Pearl, and Scarlet and Violet, hot flaming garbage. They are terrible, and it's a shame because in a response, you start seeing a lot of laziness now from bigger companies. So when something like Power comes out of the mix, and there were some blatant examples of trying to steal stuff, but they also kind of was able to run the argument of, I think, if I remember correctly, because they didn't get sued, or if they are, there's like not a ton of legal ground to stand on. Basically, on the sense of like they released a beta version and they're going to keep updating as they go. So if there's ones that look too similar, they can change the fundamental aspects of it and then re-release it. And I think that's where they're getting Game Freak, who runs Pokemon, and then Nintendo. So it's an interesting topic of debate, and it's something I definitely will ask because as time gets closer for Pokemon Zeta A's release, I definitely want to hear more people, especially because Pokemon's such a big thing in this community, such a diehard thing. From all of us dorks playing Pokemon Go, to playing like ROM hacked versions, to just rapping it. Like if you listen to any like tracks from Cam Steady or Shofu, Pokemon tracks go hard, and I promise you on that. Give it a chance. I'm going to wrap up this first episode to kind of just keep it short, simple, and sweet. Thank you all for listening to Nerds on the Mic, and I will keep you tuned for when the next episode comes out. And with that out of the way, I'm going to get out of here. This has been your host, Silver Ranch, running Nerds on the Mic. We are signing off. Peace.